Hi everyone, my name is Leland Stillman, founder of FoodWise Mobile, and I wanted to do a quick post tonight about a new resource put out by Chris Masterjohn that he's calling the Ultimate K2 Vitamin K2 resource. I got a chance to read the whole thing last night after actually having breakfast with Chris and meeting him for the first time on Sunday, and I wanted to post this because I think it's a really exciting resource, and it really made me think about vitamin K2, which honestly I have not put a lot of thought into. I wanted to break down why I think it's such a good review and why I think people who are interested in getting the most out of their health and their diet should definitely go and check it out. I will honestly admit that I had no idea how important this vitamin was until I read Chris's work on it. In medical school, we're really taught that vitamin K is a vitamin rather than a family of vitamins, and Chris breaks it down really nicely into what the different types of vitamin K are, what they do in different body tissues, and he makes a solid argument for why we really need to diversify our diet so that we're getting different types of vitamin K from different sources. So I'll go on and talk a little bit about why I think vitamin K2 is clinically relevant, which of course I see every day, and somebody like Chris doesn't necessarily, he's not practicing clinical medicine. Things I think are really important about vitamin K that he talks about: first of all, the fact that it keeps calcium in the right places. All vascular disease arguably has a component of what we would call dystrophic or misplaced, in that respect, calcium. So it doesn't matter if it's your coronary arteries or your kidneys or the arteries and veins in your legs. Calcium being deposited in your arterial system is a real problem. If we can prevent that deposition of calcium, arguably we'll be preventing and reducing the number of cardiovascular problems people have, whether you're talking about stroke or heart attacks or aortic stenosis. All of these diseases have a terrible toll on people's health and often develop silently over years. The argument, of course, is that K2, by its effects on calcium metabolism and homeostasis, can prevent a certain number of cases of these illnesses. It's important to pay attention to other cofactors like magnesium, but for example, I was already aware of magnesium's effect on dystrophic calcification. Chris clued me into why vitamin K2 is important as well. The last thing I didn't mention in that sort of bullet point was kidney stones. Kidney stones are, of course, a mistaken deposition of calcium in the renal tubules and ureters that can be very, very painful and, of course, can cause chronic kidney disease on their own. The second thing that he talked about that I thought was really compelling was the effects of vitamin K metabolically. I didn't realize that vitamin K helped support healthy normal levels of sex hormones, testosterone specifically, and then of course it also promotes healthy metabolism of sugar, including glucose sensitivity, insulin production, and then insulin sensitivity itself. The reason that's important, of course, is that, and I see immediately from the sources of vitamin K2 that Chris puts in his infographics, is that people who are diabetic or have problems with their glucose, blood glucose that is, are obviously eating a diet that's potentially very low in vitamin K. And so correcting that may have some therapeutic benefit for treating their disease. Finally, he talks about vitamin K's or K2's effects against cancer. I think it's tough to draw conclusions from the very small and limited sample sizes that he's made, but it's very compelling evidence, and certainly the biochemistry behind it is really solid, and again, he backs that up in his review as well. Things that I think were really, really important that I took away: first of all, should we be using vitamin K routinely in patients who have dystrophic calcification, whether it's in their coronary arteries or their peripheral vascular system, the arteries that feed the brain, the kidneys, or kidney stones? Second, should we be avoiding warfarin, which is a vitamin K2 antagonist, at all costs? I hear and we counsel patients a lot about the risks of bleeding with warfarin, but we don't talk to them about the risks of long-term deficiency of vitamin K. And we have many patients going on warfarin even in their 40s, if they've got, say, DVTs, which is the most common indication at that age, in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, for things like AFib and other causes or thromboembolic problems. Reason being is that we really don't know how big of an impact chronic vitamin K deficiency, which is really what warfarin is giving our patients, has on people's homeostasis. And of course, many of the issues, vascular disease specifically, that we use warfarin to keep company with calcification of the peripheral vascular system, or of course heart valves, the aorta or aortic valve being the most prominent. For that reason, I think I'm going to include that in counseling patients about whether or not to choose warfarin or NOAC in the future, because the evidence that Chris lays out is pretty compelling. And the last thing I think is interesting, and this is much more for clinical medicine and inpatient medicine, is if we are supplementing patients with vitamin K through our pharmacies, are we really paying attention to which different types of menaquinones we're giving in order to get the best and fastest response for reversal of warfarin in the event of major bleeding? Again, that's not really that relevant for the average person looking at his review, but as somebody who occasionally has to reverse someone on warfarin, it certainly piqued my interest. So again, vitamin K2 does lots of cool things. Chris has put together an awesome resource on it. I hope you'll go check it out. And if you're thinking about supplementing with vitamin K2, that's definitely the place that you should start.